Hi, welcome to Diaries. I'm Tia, this is Michelle, and on our channel we share stories on how to build wealth through real estate. So be sure to click below and subscribe so you can hear real stories from real investors working on real deals.
And today's topic is top 5 ways to fund your real estate deals. Now, starting with number 1, the obvious, cold hard cash. So if you are in a good position where you can actually pay cash for your real estate investment, that's always a good option. Now, there's pros and cons to using cash, but the obvious pros is that 1, you won't have any debt. So you don't have to worry about interest rates or debt service or being qualified with a lender. And then, of course, once you rent out the property, you'll be able to get 100% cash flow. And it's a lot easier to analyze the performance of that property when you're paying cash, which is cap rate. And we'll talk more about that later in future episodes on our website. Now, of course, another good benefit from using cash is that you can typically negotiate better deals with sellers in exchange for a faster, less complicated transaction. So if you're purchasing cash, the seller doesn't have to worry about whether you're going to qualify. You don't have to worry about appraisals or any other requirements of the lender. If you do your due diligence and the property is good, you close. Now, the obvious con of using cash is that 1, you're not going to be able to leverage that property. All your capital is now tied up into that one property. So keep that in mind too. When you're using cash, sometimes it may or may make sense depending on your investment strategy. But cash is always a great option when funding your real estate deals.
And so number 2 is going to be get a loan from a bank or lender. And this is probably the most common way to purchase real estate to build wealth, right? And the reason why it's so valuable is you're leveraging the bank's money for your investment, right? There's not very many investments that you can do that. So you put a small percentage down and basically the bank funds the rest. The nice part about using a bank or lender is basically, the better credit that you have, the better interest rates you can get. So you can use fixed rate terms or you can use an adjustable mortgage, right? So you just have a plethora of options with lending. Also, there's bridge loans, there's hard money. And so you really can tailor your strategy for investing based on your financing situation with your lenders. And you can shop different lenders for the best terms and conditions for what you're doing. So that's a really nice benefit to using the bank's money.
Yeah. So number 3 would be equity partners. Now, if you find a really good deal, but you lack the funds, another great way to fund your deal is to find partners. So this could be as simple as, do you have a rich uncle? If you have like a family member who has the cash, and then you find the deal and you have good experience, that could also be a typical investment partner if you wish. Or do you have other colleagues? Do you have colleagues that understand the value of investing and have the funds, and maybe they can help you and partner with that deal? Or other ways of finding partners is also finding contractors. Maybe you're partner with contractors, partner with a property manager, a real estate advisor, and maybe they have the funds. Go out there and find partners who will be interested in your deal. Another form of partners could be syndications. So whether that's syndications, joint ventures, whatever, it all comes to the idea that you find a really good deal and then you all pool your money together to purchase it, and thus you form a partnership or a syndication of some kind. Money isn't the only value that a partner can bring. Let's say you're fairly inexperienced, but you found a really good deal. Maybe when you're looking for a partner, you should find a partner that has both experience and the funds. So therefore, that partner, in addition to bringing cash to the deal, can also advise you to make sure that you don't make common mistakes. And so experience and knowledge also is a lot of value that a potential partner could bring.
And number 4, I would say, is seller financing. And what seller financing is when the seller actually becomes the mortgage lender. And this can become a really creative and lucrative way for both, the seller and the buyer to have a win-win situation. Some of the benefits of doing the seller financing is that you have less regulations. You can also be more flexible and creative with your terms. And so if you're someone that maybe, has lower credit, or you've kind of maxed out some of your loans, having a seller come in and step in and say, hey, we'll go ahead and serve as the bank for you, really is a huge benefit, because now that's a contract and an agreement between the two of you, and you can really get as creative as possible. So that can help with your closing costs sometimes. And then the seller actually gets to benefit from that because now they've sold their asset and it's being managed by someone else, but they're still reaping the benefit of that interest, right? So every month, depending on what interest rate you've negotiated with them, they're taking that home. So if they're a retired couple or, they don't want to be in real estate anymore, but they still get to take home monthly income from financing their own real estate, it can be a win-win for both parties.
Yep, absolutely. And then number 5, equity swaps. So equity trading and equity swaps is a strategy that is less known and less used, but it's still a creative way to fund your deals. A good example of an equity swap would be, let's say you own a single family house and it's free and clear. You don't have any debt on it and you have tenants in this cash flowing. But then you find an 8-unit property that you really like, but you don't have the funds to purchase the 8-unit property. And for whatever reason, you can't sell your single family house. Well, what you can do is that, let's say you go to the seller, and let's say the seller also doesn't have a loan on his property and is willing to carry. Well, then you can go to the seller and say, hey, I don't have the funds, but I will give you the deed to my house as a down payment for the purchase of your 8-unit, and then you finance the rest. So for example, your house is worth $500,000. Just to keep the numbers simple, you use that $500,000 as a down payment, and maybe it's 25% of the property. Let's say the property is worth $2 million. Then the seller will carry the remaining 75% of the property. Now, this is an excellent way that you just took your house and you traded it for an 8-unit property without having to come out with any cash on your own. So there's definitely lots of creative ways to go about funding deals without actually using money as a compensation for the real estate property. Which leads me to another story for the Door Diaries. Now, I do have a real story. Actually, I was working with an investor that I was representing as an advisor, and we came across a very interesting deal. It was a 12-unit property, but it was pretty run down. The owner was very seasoned and had owned the property for a very, very long time. But it was like these little shacks that were on the lot, very, very run down. I mean, when you drove up to it, you were like, what is this? And then it had like this little 4-plex building. It looked like a little motel where the tenants would come and just stay for only a week at a time. And then they would pay the owner, a weekly rent. And then of course the owner lived in a house that was on the property, and the property was pretty run down. So the property wasn't in very good condition to even get a bank loan. So even if you wanted to get the bank loan, the bank wouldn't offer a loan on a property in such poor condition.
Yeah.
And since the owner had it forever, the owner was charging very, very low rents. So the property value just wasn't there. But my investors saw a lot of potential in the property. So the good thing is that the property was paid off. He didn't have any notes on it or anything like that. And so, we referred to a CPA and also his attorney as far as maybe some of the benefits he would get for doing a seller carry versus just selling it outright, right? And so what we did is that we were actually able to negotiate a seller carry. So we came up with a price on the property. The great thing about seller carry is that you can be as creative as you want, as long as it's legal, as far as coming up with terms that benefit both the seller and the buyer. So the investor purchased the property owned it, and then on a monthly basis, he paid the interest-only payment to the seller. So the seller benefited because he got an interest payment and he was earning income without him having to actually own and manage the property anymore. So it turned to basically mailbox money. So he got his mailbox money on a monthly basis for the interest. And then it was a low enough payment that the investor can afford to keep it and make his repairs. So he put a lot of money in turning the building around, increasing the rents, renovating the property, and it looked much better. And actually within 18 months, so before the 2-year period, he was able to turn the whole building around, raise all the rents, and was able to refinance with a traditional bank. So the seller got all their money plus the interest payments they received over the 18 months. And then my client now has a really good property that he got at a good price, and it's all fixed up. So, sometimes he actually used the BRRRR method. Yeah, which we can talk about in a later video.
Yeah.
But he was able to do a cash out refinance. So he was able to get the majority of his original investment out. So that was a kind of a win-win for taking on that risk, right? I mean, the higher the risk, the higher return sometimes.
And it sounds like he was able to see the opportunity, you know, that even like most people wouldn't have been able to see that far, but he had a special skill set. And, you know, that actually leads me to a story for the Diaries.
Yes, another one for the Diaries.
I have a client that has unique skill set, right? A contractor. And so when they walk into a space, they just have different eyes and different lenses than most people. And so what they actually were able to do, they started out as just doing construction, fixing and working on, you know, their own like projects in their business, but they wanted to get into investing. And so what they did is used equity partners to basically fund it. So they started with their parents, and then because they were able to put in the sweat equity of rehabbing and remodeling the properties, they started to get other investors that came in with them, you know, friends, family, and they started to create these partnerships. And with that, they didn't have to put very much money into it because they had such a valuable skill set. And that was going in and doing the work. And honestly, they've been able to build a really nice sized portfolio for themselves and for their family and friends. So when we're thinking about ways to fund projects, you want to think about what value can I bring? You know, is it finding the deal? Is it working in the deal? Right. Is it, you know, the contracting? Is it architecture? What is your skill set that you can bring to help fund this deal?
Right, exactly. So, I mean, this goes to show that, you know, you don't necessarily need cash to invest, but you definitely need to bring something to the table. Yep. So as long as you can get creative, sometimes you can find and fund really good deals. And as a thank you for staying to the end, we do have a bonus tab. We have a great book that we recommend that every investor purchase and read. And it's called 300 Ways to Buy, Sell, or Exchange Real Estate by Robert W. Steele. It's pretty creative because he goes over how to trade real estate properties without actually using money. So he goes over very, very different creative ways in which you can fund deals and buy deals without using the traditional sense of actually using cash. So we recommend that you go into the description below to get a link to check out your book and order that book.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And if you are looking to get started on your real estate journey, or you're looking to buy or invest, make sure you visit our website at DiariesRE.com, and we'd be happy to connect you with a real estate advisor in your area to get you started.
And if you liked our video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. So therefore, on a weekly basis, you'll get updated on hearing about real stories on real investors working on real deals.